Wow. So, thoughts on the thumbnail? Did you like it? I've been using the
Yeah.
Canva tools, the AI tools. I'm trying not to make the thumbnails too clickbaity, but I'll tell you, Len, once I get going, I'm having a blast making these things. The prompts get so long and so fun. I had a great one of zombie Freeland and zombie Trudeau putting a crown on Carney's head, but I just couldn't get the crown to look like it was like deformed AI slop. God, that one was good though. That was a really good one. Maybe I'll share some of the ones that don't make the cut after the show from now on. They just stay in your Grok and Canva.
Do that.
They're funny.
Do it on Discord.
Sure,
Because
yeah, I'll
that's
put
a
them on
great.
Discord. Yeah, sure.
Which I fucking forgot to mention. It's our Discord is just rocking. And Joey, you're even making the odd appearance every.
I have no choice because I'm under attack. I'm under attack in there.
There's nuts and there's questions being asked of you too. So there's dialogue with sometimes you're not present to answer. But either way, like if you're not on it, like I'm not talking about you, Joey, I'm talking about the people listening. Definitely go on to it. If you want to know the link to it, it should be in the notes below in both the audio, the podcast, and also the video. So check it out. But
yeah, definitely.
Okay, we got something to talk about. What's going on?
Mark? Yeah, go. You want to start?
Well,
let's talk about the convention.
Let's talk about Paulie. No. We'll go right. Paulie was asking. You asked twice. Let's do it. The chair.
Paulie?
The fucking chair.
Where?
He asked once
earlier.
in the chat,
Yeah, I saw.
And once on Twitter or X.
Okay.
And so yeah, that fucking chair. I love it that he took the chair. Apparently that's a standing tradition that I didn't even know that's the case. That you take the chair, whatever chair. It's just awesome.
I'm
but
gonna
the
find
face,
the picture to share in the chat
and
here.
the face that he used, it's the exact same.
Looks familiar, doesn't it? That face.
Yes. I don't want to say what it is, but there's he did that before. It does it again.
Chair face.
What did Paulie call it? The cuck chair.
The cuck chair. I do like that chair. I got to be honest with you. As someone who bought chairs for this room,
I'm getting tired.
Yeah, I'm getting tired of the yellow ones. I kind of like the more like ritzy, luxury, like studded velvet. I think that
if it comes out with a roller and just paint it, I could take care of that.
You think? Yeah, you want to come by? Yeah, why not? I've never been here, so I don't know.
Can of paint and a roller? I can make it whatever color
you
you
need the address? Do you need the address? I haven't seen you.
I personally need
I haven't seen you in years, so I don't. I just want to make sure you still don't get lost on the way here or anything.
I'm trying to find this picture.
I gotta find this picture. You can apparently share image files on. Oh my god!
See, podcast episodes can have images for chapters if you're using podcast 2.0 features, and we do have we're podcast 2.0 enabled, so we should somehow do that. I don't know how the fuck it's done. Fuck it, it's too much work.
Pictures, screenshots.
Joey's the one doing all this stuff. He's too busy.
I'm doing it right now.
There's so that
familiar face.
Yeah,
I can't zoom in. I don't know how to zoom in.
Oh, it's just that.
There you go. Yeah, through this. There you go. And now you can just see the face there.
I like that.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
So was he doing that? Did he do that pose? Was it like a security camera or somebody just above snapping a photo? I don't know how it was done.
I don't know either.
Either way, great stuff. Yeah. He's still our prime minister, right? Even though Mark Carney has been elected liberal leader, Justin Trudeau is still our prime minister because you got to get sworn in. Just like theoretically, if there's an election, like we didn't have this leadership, this liberal leadership, and Trudeau was the leader of the Liberal Party. And there was an election, and Polyev won. He doesn't instantly become prime minister. He still has to get sworn in. So that there's a period of time. So that's what's happening. People are wondering what the fuck. That's it. It's just a period of time. There's a transition that's going to happen, and then Carney is going to get eventually sworn in as prime minister. Now Carney won with 170,000-ish votes were cast, and he won with 86%.
Yeah, 150.
Thoroughly thrashed everybody else. Freeland must have been embarrassed by her showing, getting around, I think, 8%. She was expecting way higher than that. That's a pretty bad showing. But I think this highlights the number of people that voted. 170,000, Joey, voted. 400,000 signed up. So that's 230,000 people for whatever reason. Perhaps they were signed up illegitimately or they just didn't want to vote. I wonder how many of those were just turned off. What happened with Chandra and Ruby?
A bunch. Yeah, I think a bunch.
And to me, that's a sad sign if that's the case. And if you believe them, that's another thing. You're 100% right. I don't know if these numbers can be audited, if they're transparent. They're certainly not on the Bitcoin blockchain. We can't run a node and fucking check this shit out.
Yeah.
We have to rely on somebody. So that's, so it is what it is. There's nothing more.
I don't think it was a slanted vote. I think that was the expectation. Basically, certainly from Carney the entire time. I don't know from everyone else the entire time. And watching the debates, it's like, who can agree with Carney the hardest, basically. It was...
Frank Bayless is not.
Yeah, it was a coronation. Bayless, I thought I didn't agree with Bayless on a lot of stuff. He's still kind of a climate character there, but he's the most competent guy, and he's the furthest removed from the current government. I'll say this, okay? We'll talk about Carney in a second, but I want to talk about the Liberal Party and maybe Trudeau as well, since he's the outgoing prime minister. There's a lot of talk over the last few months about how corrupt that government's become. And I don't think this is a problem with only the Trudeau Liberals. It's probably a problem with many governments who spend that much time in power. The reason that governments are not supposed to remain in power for 3, 4, 5 terms here in Canada, in any parliamentary system really, and why the places like the United States limit to 2 terms per individual president, is because there's too many tentacles at that point to say that you're impartial or removed from corruption or removed from political favors and things like that. It's very difficult. And I just want to point out that the people who say the Trudeau Liberals were corrupt, I think they're correct. And like I said, maybe not for the reasons that, I mentioned earlier. It's not a unique problem, but I want to point to something here that I think is a bigger problem. And the problem is McKinsey. McKinsey, you may know, is a, sort of corpo think tank, advisory group. There's many ways to describe something like McKinsey and Partners. Basically, though, these guys drive policy for the country. And it's not just our country, by the way, that they drive policy for. It's a dozen countries around the world. European countries talk to McKinsey, and major corporations talk to McKinsey. And the reason you engage a company like McKinsey is so that you can do something unpopular with people or employees and then say that it wasn't your idea. We hired an impartial third party and it needed to be done. The thing that a lot of people don't know about McKinsey, who, like I mentioned, is driving policy for major nation states, major corporations, companies around the world, and probably other things that I'm missing, NGOs maybe, who knows. The thing that people don't know about McKinsey, Len, is that, did you know they also run a hedge fund called MIO? Yeah, they have a hedge fund arm. So McKinsey...
I thought blockchain was administering that.
Yeah. So McKinsey is actually advising countries, nation states, huge organizations, corporations, and then profiting on the back of the policy that either gets enacted or not enacted. Because you can bet either way. You profit either way, right? If you suggest that a country like Canada goes all in on green energy, there's a way to profit off that if they agree. And if they don't agree, there's a way to profit off that too. The corruption is actually at the point of the contracting with these advisory groups. And I think that if Polyev gets 8 years, or Carney gets 8 years, or whoever gets 8 years, the groups that are in bed with these guys will continue to be the ones who are driving policy for the country, continue to be the ones who are, raping and pillaging, whether it's resources or labor groups or whatever, and just making money on the hedge fund side. Like, no one even realizes that they have a hedge fund. MIO is the name of the hedge fund. Go look. Who are we? MIO Partners Incorporated is a global investment and advisory institution with a commitment to the highest level of investor-focused values, and ethics and decades of experience. Oh, and by the way, MIO is a subsidiary of McKinsey & Company and a registered investment advisor regulated by the SEC. Okay. The criminals and crooks, you may say they're in government. You may say they're politicians. We may ask, how did these politicians get so rich during their time in Parliament? These people are not the people you should be looking at. It is the McKinseys you should be looking at. And so when people say Trudeau was corrupt, point them to McKinsey, point them to KPMG, point them to any of these sort of big firms that guide policy. Faceless faceless. And, you know, it's not, it's, you know, if you think that's not enough, Len, the Trudeau Liberals, like just pulling some data here from a number of different sources, more than $200 million in contracts between 2015 and 2023 with McKinsey. Dominic Barton is a name you may know. Do you recognize that name?
No.
Dominic Barton was the CEO of McKinsey for a long time, and later was appointed as an economic advisor under Trudeau, and then eventually an ambassador envoy to China, something like that, received a position in the Trudeau government. So hedgy, government advisor, McKinsey CEO, like the revolving door, the stuff goes deep. It goes deep. It's not one guy or one party. It's that when you walk in the door of Sussex, there are people who have expectations and the power to get from you things that you didn't think you were willing to give. And if you think that that's not going to happen to the next guy and the guy after that and the guy after that, this is why it's important that you become a Bitcoiner, because it exempts you. It removes you from this nonsense. There's no games being played around here. Everything is clear. Like Len said, it's all transparent. There's no McKinsey in Bitcoin. Okay. McKinsey doesn't get meetings with the CEO of Bitcoin. And that's important. It's going to become more and more important as these non-nation state actors, these faceless groups, try and take over policy all over the world as people try and become more free and break from the shackles that they're in. So just think about that. When someone tells you, or you think to yourself, Trudeau's corrupt, that's not really the whole story. There's a lot more going on, and it deserves your attention just as much as something like Carney being appointed with 0.03% of all Canadians voting for him, or whatever the fuck that number was. Bigger stuff going on. Hedge funds. You can't. It's crazy, Len. Absolutely insane.
Well, look at the net worth of a lot of people that are involved, and it's gone up in the past 5 years, gone up substantially. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to say numbers, but just go do some research. And how does it happen? How does somebody on a public service salary working as an MP, cabinet minister, or higher up get to be so fucking rich?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's definitely
I could guess.
It's definitely not like, you know, turning Pokemon cards. Like, they're not getting lucky opening booster packs. I'll tell you that. So what is it?
You know, the thing is, and then
they're not selling diet plans and workout regimens, are they?
And people out there, they're just waking up, going to the job, coming back home, having meal with family, doing shit like that. This is their daily life. And then they rinse and repeat. They don't have time to like do other things to like maximize their wealth because they don't have the contacts. They're fucking busy just being fiat slave laborers. And then over time, they just continually get pushed behind the eight ball because their salary isn't going up to the same rate that the currency is being devalued.
Yeah.
And then you have this new crop of individuals, young Canadians, that they have no chance of getting anything. And they'll probably want to move out to a different country where they will have a chance. So you have this brain drain and so forth. And we have to replace that with people from outside of Canada, which, you know, we should be doing to a degree, but sometimes they do it too much, like they did in the past few years when now we have hospitals that are fucking busy, streets that are busy, schools that are full. You know what you know what to do. Like we say, buy your Bitcoin, make plans, and execute it. There's nothing. It's very simple, right? It's very fucking simple. Like I'm doing my part. I hope everybody's doing theirs.
We got coming on the show in a few weeks to talk about a wallet that's in development. That's going to make this stuff even easier. I won't spoil that, but some of the stuff I've seen has been absolutely nuts.
And with respect to the Carney getting elected.
Yeah, where do you come
He's
down?
going to pick his cabinet.
Did you watch? What did you think about it? The cabinet's sort of coming into shape now. What did you think about this?
The cabinet's going to be the exact same.
It's crazy.
Crazy. There's a reason for that.
Disgraced former cabinet members being called back to service, right?
Well, Mendocino's
case,
he's not being a cabinet. He's being a chief of staff. There's
called back to service, not being a cabinet member, but being called back to service.
He was taken. He was the fall guy for something, and so they had to give him something as a result, and this is it. So if you really look into it,
a little favor there.
No, 100%. He was the fall guy.
No, but the favor on the back end. Do you think that was
for sure? They had to give him maybe an ambassador for somewhere, but he maybe didn't want it, so they give him this, and here you are. So this is what it is. But the cabinet's going to be the exact same. I can't see them changing the cabinet because they're going to go into an election. They can't not go into election. 2 reasons they have to get into election right away. Number one, Carney doesn't have a seat in the House of Commons. So being the prime minister without having a seat in the House of Commons won't jive in today's world. And we
guy in Rumble telling us to become the 51st. Listen, I don't know how this country would vote if there was a referendum, but I think it would be a lot closer than the pull the liquor off the shelves crowd likes to think.
So Carney's going to have to run right away because he doesn't have a seat. And number two, there is the honeymoon period of him getting all this hoopla for first getting. So he's going to have to capitalize in it. And by doing so, calling elections soon makes sense. Now, you're not going to have these cabinet ministers learn a whole or be briefed on a whole new portfolio while at the same time fighting an election. It just doesn't make sense. So you're going to have a lot of them just be status quo. That's the way I'm predicting it. Is going to be everybody pretty much the same things, not much moving around of the chairs in the Titanic. And then here we go. Let's see what happens. And so we even have people coming back. In my neck of the woods, Anita Anand said she was not going to run. And then she's changed her mind maybe 2 weeks ago and says she's now running. Saw the writing on the wall. Maybe she has the opportunity to run again. Oh, by the way, she's 6 months away from getting the pension too. That's just a side note. A single win would get her to that point. So yeah, it's very interesting to see all this play out and Trudeau disappearing. And a lot of people are like, somebody who was saying it, they're going to have the memory hole of a lot of Trudeau's. It was Boom Dust was saying that. And it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of this plays out because he's been in power for 9 years. It's a long time. And a lot's been done under his power, under his watch.
I'm just finding out people are asking, the people's mothers in the chat are asking if I'm a Trumper. Listen, I wouldn't call myself a Trumper. I would say that he was a superior candidate in the elections in which he ran, including the one he lost. So if that makes me a Trumper, then yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Carney. You watched the speech, right?
A little bit. I didn't watch a lot. I really just skip it here.
Anti-Trump speech. Whole thing was anti-Trump. We can't let Trump win. We can't let the United States bully us. We can't do this, that, blah, blah, blah. This is a gift to the Liberals. I don't know if they'll be able to ride it to an election victory, but I am not counting them out. Polymarket has them at like 35 or 36%. Pretty high. So, do
you think the NDP would be in a position they would want to do a coalition government after the election?
Yeah.
Would they want to prop up?
100%.
And do you think that the Greens have also...
I don't think there's going to be an election until the fall. I truly and honestly believe that.
So how could it? I'd like to hear.
You tell me. You're the historian, and this is one of the places we disagree the most. Is on this and you're right a lot of the time. So I don't want to discredit you, but I think that there's clearly here a change in what the established rules and order look like all over the world, and it's happening in democratic nations. And so this thing that I keep on hearing, and you're not as steadfast in it and as sort of pointed in your views as some people, but this idea that he needs to find a seat and has to call an election, and I really think that's just not going to happen. I think things are going to get worse and worse, and they're going to make this Trump monster into as big a Leviathan Godzilla beast as they can, and try and ride it to a victory.
So
I think it's going to take, he's not going to do it for 5 months, or maybe then they do it in the summer and hope for low turnout. I don't know.
Will they have the House of Commons resume later this month?
Yeah.
Then what's your prediction? What happens after that? What?
I think, what, I'll tell you what I think. Okay. I think that what's going to happen, and you can tell me if this is within the rules or the order, something you expect to see or is expect to be allowed, but I'm going to preface this with a few things, okay? Mm-hmm. Pierre Poilievre is a 0 out of 10 politician. He's completely unproven. He's only about TikTok videos and sound bites, has no coherent policy positions that he's able to articulate. There might be some documented conservative ones, but he's not able to articulate them any place that he's ever been asked. And he's been running against the weakest party and candidate in probably the country's history. That's number one. Number two, Carney.
Ignatieff.
Yeah, but he didn't. But he's not. Ignatieff was not an incumbent, so I shouldn't say the weakest candidate. He's running against the weakest incumbent ever in Trudeau, or he was basically campaigning against him. Yeah.
Okay. Up until now, was the incumbent.
So now he's going to run into Carney, and Carney, for all his weaknesses, is pretty good in front of a camera. Although I will admit, rather uninspiring. But he's a lot deeper on some of this stuff than Poilievre is. And Poilievre's camp and his advisors and that party, they haven't changed their approach at all in the last 2 months. It's axe to tax, just like Justin, this, that, the other.
It was a strategy that's been working up until then.
It's been working against.
Right. So you're not going to change like the winning strategy. Oh, let's now run the ball. I know we were passing for fucking thousands of yards.
Hold on a minute. Why has it been a winning strategy? What about that strategy tells you it's a winning strategy?
Because up until recently, a lot of the momentum was behind the Conservatives.
You've been saying on this show that anybody could have run against Trudeau. His time was just up. So yeah. I don't think that strategy has been a winning strategy necessarily. What I think is that he could have said anything and been ahead in the polls against Trudeau. But that's changed now. And I don't see his party making any shifts. Now, I admit that maybe his party is saving some bullets for when there's actually a candidate that's been voted in that they have to run against. And that's happened now. But I think that Carney, in a debate setting, in a QP setting, in a media setting, with the entire establishment media in favor of his victory and continued liberal rule, like I don't think Poilievre's ready for it, honestly.
Take this back because you're going in a direction, but I want you to address something that hasn't been addressed. How did they sit in the House of Commons, and avoid a non-confidence vote?
Oh, the NDP's not gonna. They're gonna prop him up. I think they're gonna prop him up.
So they're gonna. Now, how do you have this looks really fucking bad.
Well, this is what I mean. Like you know the rules here, because I don't know what the answer.
You don't have to have
is.
A prime minister. You don't have to have a prime minister. You don't have to have the leader there. It could be somebody else, because quite often the prime minister is doing stuff outside Ottawa, and they have somebody else representing the House leader, or whatever. And so you'll have that if the prime minister just doesn't have a seat in the House of Commons. But you can't. It looks really bad, and that's going to be low-hanging fruit for the Conservatives. They say, look at this fucking guy. He's not even an elected guy, and he's the prime minister, unelected prime minister. This would resonate amongst people. They can't wait. They have to fucking it. There's two reasons why they have to do it. As I said, number one, he's not holding a seat. It looks fucking bad.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, it's a honeymoon period. You got to fucking take advantage while it's here. A lot of indication shows that the Liberals, they've made massive gains. It's almost like the came out of nowhere type of situation. It's like the Buffalo Bills against Houston Oilers back in 1992, where the Buffalo Bills came back. Remember the largest comeback ever.
The Bills have never won a Super Bowl, so it didn't work out for them.
No, but it was the largest comeback ever. It was down by 30 points at the half. They have to do it now. And waiting any time just puts them in a position where they could potentially get screwed. They're going to just burn away this opportunity of having massive gains. It just seems like they have to do it now.
The chat is split. The chat is split on your.
I don't give a shit what the chat says. the chat is the chat. I don't give a fuck what they say. Some hold keys, some don't. I do what I do, and I don't give a fuck. So they got to do it, and then they got to take their lumps. If they finish second, so be it. If they finish first, so be it. But
at least stay if they don't win.
It depends how strong it is. I if you asked me 2 months ago, I was like, how the fuck could this guy get more than 70 seats? How could this guy get more than 30 seats? But it's possible he could get way more than 70 seats. It's quite possible. And they're gonna. Let's break this down even further. Out east, the Liberals aren't going to be all that strong. Maybe they'll get half at that. Maybe, right? Because that carbon tax really hurt them in certain areas of out east. So it's going to be hard for them to really make gains. Quebec, they're going to get slaughtered. Absolutely slaughtered. There's no way. Carney doesn't speak French well
there's
enough.
No conservative seats there, right? Like there's not.
Conservatives never. So I'm giving it all or mostly to the Bloc. Yeah. If the NDP ran a fucking candidate that was better, that they would have been the national choice, the national party choice in Quebec. But they don't. There's a vacuum there, so the Bloc is going to pick up the majority of the seats. Okay, Ontario, man, oh man. If anything, I'm going to lean towards Liberal. Same. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Same.
And then, so Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, shut out. Liberals are going to get fucking shut out. Mm-hmm. And then BC, they'll get their fair share. So what does this all equate to? Maybe 100?
Yeah.
How could they form government? Like 130 from what I'm saying? They're going to get shut out of those three provinces. Out east, not much. Quebec, nada. So they're going to get the majority of seats from Ontario and BC, is that enough to form government?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Pierre, I think his camp realizes he's not that good a politician and that he may have already hit his ceiling in terms of camera competence. And the reason I say that is because they spent 6 months having the guy add 20 pounds of muscle and take his glasses off. So I think that
he's doing an image change.
Yeah, because I just don't think I think he's capped out on the sort of intellectual side, which, you can say it's good or bad or, whatever Carney is or isn't. The thing that's interesting I want to talk about a bit is Carney's wife. Since Carney is still, I think, a private citizen, right? Can I say these things? I don't know. I guess I'll find out. Mark, give me a call.
Is this a Emmanuel Macron type situation?
No, his wife's not being accused of having. His wife's not being accused of having a horn, but she is, I think, actually the more radical of the two of them, and I think the more dangerous of the two of them. Sophie Trudeau, whether you liked her or didn't like her. Harper's wife, I don't even know her name.
Lauren?
They were, I don't know, but they're background figures, I didn't hear much about Sophie Trudeau. Sophie Trudeau is trying to sell a book on how to have a good divorce now or something. Great. That's fine. You want to capitalize on that?
She was so neutral in her position.
Tell me how much you enjoyed your weekend away with Idris Elba or whatever that is. Cool, no problem. But this lady, Len, this lady has an agenda. Works for Eurasia Group. Huge into climate initiatives, almost nonstop in the climate initiatives. That's the only thing she cares about. I don't know. I'll give you some example of stuff she does. She's a senior advisor at Eurasia. Their main focus, climate sustainability. Advisor at Beyond Net Zero and Helios Climate, green economic transitions. Advisor, TechMet, Terramera, technology metals, soil carbon. Trustee at Shell and Client Earth, Energy Access and Environmental Law. Board member at Save the Children. I guarantee they're not doing much of that. Development, sustainable energy, the focus area there. Former executive director at Pi Capital and the VP in Canadian operations, and that's climate policy and public discourse as an interest for that organization. There's really... you could look at her profile here and, you said it kind of under your breath. There's an ongoing effort to scrub this data, but thankfully archive.is does not forget. Pretty crazy. Diana Fox Carney has a strong academic foundation with degrees from Oxford and Pennsylvania, but does not hold a current academic position. Her work with think tanks, though, does have academic research involved, including in climate policy. She's sort of infamous in the UK for penning an article or tweeting that she was having trouble finding a place because she wasn't able to afford one, even though she was making, I think, £60,000 a month as a living allowance. Yeah, from Carney being the governor. Not to mention what she was getting paid for this other stuff. So, when you talk about power couples, again, it's hard for me to imagine there's not a concerted effort by the media to not talk about this, because if this was anyone else, right? Melania Trump can't wear a pantsuit that's all white without being called a Nazi or a racist. And this lady is as extreme as they come in her viewpoints. Whether they are correct or not is a totally separate discussion, but it bears repeating here that the media is ignoring that these two people are as inside, connected, McKinsey types as you can ever get. And it's just not being discussed. So whenever someone tells you that Mark Carney is the guy who's really the extremist, I honestly think it's his wife who's the extremist. And I want to know more about her, and I want to see her in a public setting speaking. And I want to see what she's like. Because I'd guess, Len, that she is driving a lot of the things that Mark Carney talks about, focuses on at this point. They're an older couple. I guess when they're not hanging out with Ghislaine in a field, maybe they're talking about ways to shutter the Alberta oil industry. I don't know, but clearly here there is something to this, and I think that this lady's really flying under the radar in a way that shouldn't, that no competent media establishment would ever allow. But they seem to be allowing it here. Obviously, of course, right? Liberal media. Rosie Barton has never read an article on Diana Fox Carney that she didn't like. So Yeah. I hope Pierre brings it up, honestly, because his wife came under attack in the past, right? For her connections to his office and how she got a job because he was an MP. Well, what about all this? What about all this? Yeah, in all caps in the chat. What about Biden's son? Like this is the same. It's in the same vein. Meanwhile, Oneida Polyev or whatever, I think her name's Oneida Polyev, can't have a job in an MP's office. Like it's the double standard is ridiculous. But this is one of the reasons that I think it's possible Carney wins the general election. Honestly,
well, let's go back now. Are they going to do well out east?
No.
Okay. Are they going to do well in Quebec?
No.
Are they going to do well in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta?
I don't know. I don't know about Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta for sure. No, but like that's a given.
Shut out.
What are the swing jurisdictions in Canada? Like you would know this better than me, but this is
905.
Okay, tell me.
905 is huge.
905, really? Wow. Okay.
For sure. Yeah, it could swing either way, and that's a lot of seats. Maybe Montreal. I'm not sure about that. I'm just now talking shit at this particular moment, but I for sure know that 905 they could go either way. So whoever wins up,
Saskatchewan saying in the chat, all caps, and Nate both saying that
it's going to be shut out. Yeah, absolutely fucking shut. These guys have no way of winning seats.
Blue, given the election results. Yeah, I think there's people.
It might be blue, might be red.
Yeah, I don't know. Pundits, a lot of pundits, competent pundits, I think, are saying that there's a lot of like Trudeau, Ford voters. And I can't imagine that. I don't know how that person like lives day to day.
No, well, historically, it's always been if you had PC in Ontario, then you'd be voting Liberal federally in Ontario. It's always been like
that's interesting. Very interesting.
I don't know if that still stands right now, but it used to be in the past. So to go with all this now, if the Liberals somehow even get close to like it's going to be minority government either way for Conservatives or Liberals, Pierre Poilievre I think is gone. I think Poilievre has to come out with a majority government.
It's got to be beating or he's out. Yeah, I think so too.
If they come out with a minority government, there's going to be some coalition. The Green have already said before anything even started, they're going to want to go ahead and form a coalition government. So that's 1 or 2 seats, not a lot, but there you go. They'll be able to add that. The NDP, they're going to prop up everything. After the next election, they're not going to want to go to another election, so they'll prop up whatever the fuck that comes to it. Like, yeah, you can prop this shit. Because they'll be a party without a leader at that point, so then they just don't have the appetite for or the finances even to go ahead. Then it goes to the Bloc. The Bloc is going to have a big say.
They're not going to play ball with Conservatives because of the pipeline, right? Seems to be the case.
So who are they most likely to be friendly with? The Liberal Party, I would say.
That's always been the case. Yeah, that's always been the case.
Well, they've been.
No, I'm not saying they've always cooperated, but they've always been the more likely bedfellow. I think, right? That's fair.
I don't know.
Wow,
I'm looking at this.
Okay.
Historically, if you want to go back to the genesis, they were a splinter group from both Bloc and Liberal. From both Progressive Conservatives and Liberals. That's what the party formed, and it was a combination of the two. So I still think that there's still some hatred towards the Liberals and some hatred towards the Conservatives. But if they're gonna talk turkey with somebody, I think they'll probably talk turkey more to Liberals, and that means that it's quite likely, or there's a likelihood we'll have a Liberal government. So then Carney would be prime minister again, propped up by 3 parties, and you'll have then Poilievre has to leave. I can't see him sticking around if he loses that. He's been given this on a fucking platter, and if he can't do this,
I think he's.
But who's next?
He's going to get taken. That's a good question. Who? And this is. I said this to my in-laws the other day. They're both like liberal sort of CBC enjoyers. I don't hold that against them. It's hard to get into new media at their age, but like the Canadian political scene is lacking in talent in a way that I don't think it's ever lacked in talent. Maybe it's just because I'm paying more attention now as I'm getting a little older and have a little more skin in the game, but there's like no competent politicians. And it shows there's no competent politicians because look at the speaker list for the Liberal convention. Trudeau and Chrétien. Chrétien's 1,000 years old. If that guy was any older, they'd be pulling him out for fossil fuels, man. Like, what the fuck is going on?
He's 91 years old. And
I like him, Len, but no one's arguing whether the guy was a great prime minister, and I think he's a good man. But the idea that that's where you have to go for the convention, it's not great, I don't think, right?
Who else could they bring up?
This is my point. Who are they going to? I don't know. I have no idea.
All the previous, if you had to go, the prominent people, Freeland, well, she's there running.
Yeah.
Morneau, he basically cut ties with.
That's a guy. If I was the conservatives,
Bob Ray,
if I was a conservative party, I'd be trying to get Bill Morneau.
I don't think he wants anything to do with politics, but that's a good point. I don't think he does
either, but I'd be going for him. That's a guy who I would try and make an offer to. Nope. Who else is there? I'm trying to think of who would have been a good one if he didn't fucking tank his whole career over the Penguins is Balsillie. Another guy who would have been probably a good politician around this time in his life, right? He's probably 60 years old or so now and just whiffed for 5 years straight. Blew Blackberry, blew the Pittsburgh Hamilton.
You know who was good? Who? And I thought she was good on her is Candace Berman or whatever her name was. The lady that was there previous to Polyev.
Yeah.
She was I thought she was able to talk really well enough the comments and really just fucking hammered some certain points. It's too bad she was there temporarily and left shortly thereafter. Maybe she would have been a good one. I don't know. Well, she speaks French. Maybe she's terrible French. I have fucking no clue.
Other Canadian sort of personalities that can run for the Conservatives. Yeah, Boomer in the chat saying Chris Hatfield, but he's not going to run for the Conservatives.
The Liberals have an astronaut in there. Who the heck is it?
I don't know. Is Roberta Bondar an MP? I don't think she is.
No, the Liberals have and he's a minister, isn't he not?
Oh, I don't
know. He tried running twice or 3 times to be leader and failed every time. Forget his name. Anyways,
one.
Whatever.
Mark Carney.
Mark Carney. Ricky from the Trailer Park Boys. Let's get him in. He'd be fucking mid.
I really do want to know. Bubbles, if you guys, Mark Garneau, not Garnier, Garneau. I really do want to know if you're in the chat and leave a comment or something on the video or on Twitter. I don't care where. I really don't know who the Conservatives could run if Polyev loses. They really gonna try. Are they really going to march out? Now Ford.
Doug fucking Ford.
He could do it. Dofo could do it, I think. Yeah. I think he could do it. My other thought is you can't really go into the party. Probably the second most visible person is Lanceman. And she's, not, she's not leadership material, I don't think. What do I know? I'm just a guy in his basement, but, having followed this stuff, and I think
she's good on her. She's very good with.
That's not the problem. It's just there's a missing element there that's hard to identify. If it was easy to identify, I would be able to pin down the next leader, right? But
Doug Ford, I'm going to stand by that one. That's the one. And I'll
say little inside baseball for you. You know what Doug Ford's staff calls him?
No.
PDF. Premier Doug.
What
Ford.
does the P stand for?
Premier Doug Ford.
Oh.
Yeah, they call him PDF. There you go. So you guys can take that with you.
So
little alpha here on the CBP. You've learned so much tonight. You learned that McKinsey runs a fund. You learned that Mark Carney's wife is a weather extremist, and you've learned that Doug Ford's staff calls him PDF. So there you go.
Doug Ford running again provincially, I don't think it's going to happen. And
can you imagine like Empire Dynasty? Unless Mikey Ford is ready to take over.
I prefer Randy. Randy's the guy I could love to see go in there. But Randy Ford, I'm talking about Randy from the Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
Doug Ford running, I think that's a possibility federally, especially if there's an opening. Yeah. And he could always say, look, I ran in Ontario.
He's still pretty young. He's in his 50s, right? So
yeah. I don't know how his French is. Maybe his French is pathetic. I don't know. But that's something he'd probably have to work on.
I would kill to hear Doug speak broken French in a debate. That would be so good.
He has time to rectify that. Right? He's got a majority government, so it's not like he's there every day trying to. He could pawn off a lot of the shit to his folks, to his people, and he could start learning French on the side. So who knows? Maybe he's prepping. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Whatever,
but that's good. That's a good pick, though. Good pick.
We'll just go with one last story, Joey, before we call this quick.
That was a good discussion. We hardly ever on the Canadian side get one heavy story. That was like 40 minutes we did on Carney and the liberal / political landscape here. I enjoyed that. That's good.
We'll stay on topic though. We'll stay on topic because this is a Justin Trudeau story. And remember, he's still prime minister, and he came out this past week saying that Canada is partnering with something called Gavi, Gavy. I did some searching for that. Never heard of it before. Apparently, it's the Vaccine Alliance. It's a health partnership that supports the immunization access in 57 low and middle income countries. And so they work with public and private partners. They provide new and underused vaccines to children living in some of the world's most vulnerable and marginalized communities. So to date, Canada has provided, at least before last week, Canada provided more than 1.6 billion in core funding to Gavi. 1.6 billion. That's before last week.
Is that a lot? Is that a lot? I don't know. Let's think about it.
It's up to you to decide. Yeah. So they said that they're now going to move forward and they're going to provide 500. Canada is going to assist with providing 500 million more kids with vaccines. 500 million kids with vaccines. And the question is, what's the cost for this? Like, I understand, having kids vaccinated is a big thing, but we have 10 cities, we have infrastructure crumbling, we have all this shit, and then I don't know. I see this and it's like, think of 500 million vaccines. Like, it just costed out, even with economy of scale.
If it's $1 a vaccine, let's say, like, it's a lot of money, $1.
And how much does it cost?
Transport and storage and all. Like,
yes.
That, right? Yeah.
To dispose of it, to actually plunge it, the needle into the plunger into your, like, everything has a cost. What is going to be that cost? Is it going to be several billion? I don't know. Like, what's Canada's portion? I don't have a fucking clue. But I see this kind of stuff. It's like, this is just like the last big announcement from Justin Trudeau. I think this is it just perfectly ties a bow for his tenure as prime minister.
Yeah, agreed. It's a tough way to go out.
Don Cherry's not going to be prime minister.
No, neither is Jordan Peterson. Listen, you guys are dreaming with some of these names. I love the enthusiasm, but there's just zero chance that any of these.
Have you heard Drape speak lately or no?
Yeah, a little bit. Why?
My God, he sounds so old.
He's
and
old.
He needs his, like, in his podcast, he needs his sons to, like, really guide him through, because he's not able to complete a thought sometimes, or at least start a thought. It's like watching a kid skate where you got to push him, and that's what it's like over there. And it's that
the time is undefeated, man. It comes for everybody.
Yeah,
you got to take care of yourself.
But fuck that guy. Like, he had stories, but has still stories, and but it looks like it's on his last legs. When I hear him talk.
So Paulie in the chat is saying that I should run for PM. You know what's funny? And I listen, I'm not a bigwig or anything, but I've considered running for, like, public office in Hamilton in the past. I won't say why I've considered it or, like, who asked me to consider it, but the thing is, like, nowadays, Len, it feels like one of the reasons we're short on, like, competent people is because if you ever get to the point where someone is approaching you to run for public office, chances are you can make more impact and have more influence without all the headaches of politics by not entering those types of races and doing something on your own. Doesn't it feel like that now? There's just so many other options for competent people to make an impact and have their voice heard and get a platform and all this stuff. Like,
that's what we're doing here.
Yeah. And, like, you and me are not, A-list celebrities, but fuck, I think when I think about, like, the number of people we talk to on the show and the people who want to talk to us, why would I ever get into politics? I don't have anyone digging through my past. I don't have anyone asking me about old girlfriends, or, like, it's such a headache. And people now are realizing that. And the reason that it's a headache is because the media has no better way to spend their time, because they can't become experts or even, semi-competent on any of the topics that are important. So they just dig up drama for clicks.
Just don't acknowledge the past. If somebody could bring up
a picture, I wouldn't. I definitely would not if I ever got.
Yeah, if some guy could bring up a picture of next to some lady that is associated with an island, and that we never talk about it, like,
then you don't have to worry about it. It just passes.
Yeah. If that's a topic that just is not discussed.
If a picture comes up of you next to a child sex trafficker, where you're clearly rolling balls in a field, I've been on Molly in a field, and I will tell you that picture is very close to what I would draw if you told me to draw somebody in their 50s on Molly in a field. That's how it would look. And you can say whatever you want about that. It's good or bad. You should be able to do drugs. I don't care what you do. Okay. God knows I've done stuff, but the idea that it's just being ignored, you're right, Len, is nuts to me. It's absolutely insane. It's crazy.
That's what anybody can do.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Let's talk about the weather. Yeah, the weather's fantastic today. It's just totally fucking just sidestep that.
Have you heard about the Eurasia group? They're doing great work when it comes to weather.
I can tell you stories. I really can. Anyways, let's fucking end it now before I go here.
Come back Wednesday for a show with Nuclear Bitcoiner Ryan McLeod. Yeah, should be dope. Until next time, take care of yourselves.
And don't be a cock.